In swing states from Pennsylvania to Michigan, we're hearing from voters, including undecided voters, who watched that debate between Governor Walz and J.D. Vance, and they were very frightened by J.D. Vance's answer on the questions relating to democracy, where J.D. Vance could not even answer that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. We're getting a lot of polling results this morning, especially from the new Cook political poll, is finding Vice President Kamala Harris narrowly leading in 6 of the 7 swing states. As Cook political reports, for the first time ever, a plurality of swing states now think that a Democrat will win, an 11-point swing in Harris's favor since August. I want to share with you right now what a Pennsylvania voter told NBC after watching the Walz debate. Let's play this clip right here.
If you were going to say who won tonight, I would say that Tim Walz won.
I wonder, would everybody say that Walz won this debate? A show of hands. No pressure. Okay. Not sure, Claire.
By the way, that was 5 out of 6, and the other person was not a Vance fan by any means, was just kind of undecided. Here's an undecided Michigan voter. Here's what she had to say after watching that debate. Let's play it.
But the one thing that stuck out to me was Vance's refusal to say whether or not Trump lost the 2020 election, and then also how he kind of said that carbon may not cause climate change, and kind of just his refusal to agree with those things that most people very clearly see makes me think he's not as trustworthy.
Of course, we'll show you that pivotal moment from the debate, which Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign is now running as an ad, when Governor Walz turned to J.D. Vance. It was just such an authentic Governor Walz way, and said, did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? Let's play it.
Ability to say he is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further.
Let's talk about what's going down. Let's talk about what's happening, though, in these swing states on the ground. If you've been watching the MeidasTouch network, you know I love to highlight the efforts of people who are out there knocking on doors, speaking to voters, and putting in the work. And it's incredible that we could use our platform to highlight their efforts. Someone who you probably seen, whose efforts we've highlighted here over and over again on the MeidasTouch network, is Zeke Tyler. Or I should say, Dr. Zeke Tyler. He's an anesthesiologist who probably gets very little sleep. And in between his very busy medical practice, he's out there knocking on doors each and every day and bringing us raw data about what he's actually seeing on the ground, speaking to independents, libertarians, undecided. Let me show you this video that he made. Let's play it.
So Tony and I just got done knocking 48 doors in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. Majority, if not all, independent, Republican, libertarian doors, overwhelmingly positive. Would you agree?
Yeah, not only was it overwhelmingly positive, but I was surprised how many people actually answered the door.
Yeah.
Usually people aren't home, but we had like an 80% rate of people being home, and they were all very friendly and willing to listen and talk. Some really good conversations.
Yeah, like this gentleman. Take a listen. I'm here in King of Prussia with Richard, a 77-year-old registered Republican who's going to be voting for Kamala Harris and all the Democrats up and down the ballot. I just want to say thank you so much. And what's driving you to vote for Kamala Harris as a registered Republican?
Well, I think if you look at what he says and what he does, I think you have to take it at face value. And obviously a narcissist, and he just doesn't stand for anything that I stand for.
Thank you, everyone who's getting out to vote in Pennsylvania and all over the country. Let's not take any vote for granted. When we fight,
we win.
That's right.
Let's bring in Dr. Zeke Tyler right now. Doctor, can you tell us first, how many doors would you say you've knocked? Which cities, towns, generally, how many have you been in? Just in my lawyerly way, I want to build the foundation so people know the extent and scope of your efforts.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Ben. I've knocked over 1,700 doors so far, starting probably in April of this year. I've knocked all over Pennsylvania. I drove to Erie, Pennsylvania. I've been to the Lehigh Valley, Bucks County, Delco, Montgomery County. Anywhere that I can, I'd go and knock because it gives me comfort. Hitting the doors don't lie. I firmly believe that if someone doesn't want to talk to me when I knock on the door, they simply say, I don't want to talk about politics or no, thank you. But the conversations I have with people, they're real. I don't believe they're lying to me. Sometimes people, give me comments like, oh, they're just making stuff up to get me off. They're stupid. I disagree. I believe we're having real conversations, and that gives me hope that Pennsylvania is going to break the right way. It's going to break for Kamala Harris and all the Democrats up and down the ballot this November.
It's giving me flashbacks to my time when I would take expert depositions of testifying experts on my behalf as lawyer. So now, Doctor, can you please give us your findings as you've knocked on all of the doors? What have you uncovered? What kind of assessments can you make generally?
I would say that, a couple months ago, the conversations were different, and now they've kind of shifted, I believe, because people are becoming more and more aware of Project 2025. More and more, when I knock on people's doors, they bring it up all by themselves and say, I've read Project 2025, not even the whole thing, but parts of it, and it's terrifying to me. I think people are starting to understand that the pillars of democracy can be easily taken away based on how Donald Trump wants to go about doing it. He doesn't need Congress to take away the Department of Education. He doesn't need Congress to implement abortion bans. He doesn't need Congress to affect the Department of Justice and attack his political opponents. So when people start to understand that, it becomes more understanding between the two of us at the doors. Obviously, abortion is a very big issue still on a lot of people's doors I talk to. The economy, people are starting to understand that, yeah, it's really doing quite well. So I think the civil rights aspects are becoming front and center, and just the tenuousness of democracy, especially after last night's debate with Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. It's just so obvious that they're not even trying to hide it anymore. They don't think that the 2020 election was fair to them, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to win this election, even if it means lying the whole way there.
I remember that moment from the debate also. I think we have a clip of this where J.D. Vance says, it's really rich to say that Donald Trump's a unique threat to democracy. He peacefully transferred power. And I think people in Pennsylvania, we all saw what happened. And when you see J.D. Vance actually say that in his own words, you're like, yeah, man, that's the biggest red flag. Here, let's play this clip.
First of all, it's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country.
Right. One of the things I want to ask you about, though, too, is I saw in the video that we played before, Republican, Libertarian, Independent voters. Are you speaking to a lot of Republican voters, and what are you hearing there?
That area was heavily Republican that day. And there was just this understanding that Trump is just not good for this country. He's certainly not pro-democracy. Kamala Harris has a level head. She's going to keep moving this country forward. And that there's just that trust there and understanding that this is what needs to be done in this moment. Not every door that I knock on agrees with me. I'm not going to say, there are people who are Republicans who say, I'm voting for Trump. And I say, okay, do you have a plan to vote? Great, moving on. But I would say overwhelmingly, when I knock on people's doors, whether they are Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, it has been overwhelmingly positive for not just Kamala Harris, but the Democratic ticket.
One of the things that we saw in the primaries over and over again, I think we saw it in the Pennsylvania primary, saw it in the Michigan primary, Donald Trump underperforming the polling numbers by not insignificant margins, right? He was projected to get everybody, but Nikki Haley would end up getting somewhere around 15 to 20% in these various states. And I think we saw that in Pennsylvania as well, where I think Nikki Haley still pulled like 15 to 17% of the votes, if I recall, in the primaries. And that wasn't being picked up in the polling data. So, do you see right now those Nikki Haley voters kind of clearly going in one way or the other?
I would say only a couple doors would people even bring up Nikki Haley. I think that whatever leaning they had towards her has completely gone away. I think the contrast is very clear right now when I talk to people. They understand that they're choosing between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. I think that they put Nikki Haley to the side completely. And we are very, very focused on those conversations and just really trying to get out the vote. And it makes me happy now. Montgomery County, Pennsylvania is one of the first counties in the Commonwealth to send out mail-in ballots. And there people are receiving them and sending them back. And so we're really focused on a Get Out the Vote initiative and say, as soon as you get that ballot, fill it out and send it back. Because despite the fact that we have all these mail-in ballots and they're safe in Pennsylvania, we can't even start counting the ballots until Election Day. 8 a.m. Election Day is the first time that people can actually open up the ballots and start taking them out and sorting them and counting them. And that is by design. Republican politicians in Pennsylvania had a chance to change the election laws and allow people to even just take the secrecy envelope out of the mailing envelope. If you can imagine, we have hundreds of thousands of ballots that are just sitting in a warehouse, completely unopened. But they need that narrative on Election Day and 24 hours later to show that once they start dumping the results of the mail-in ballots, of course, it's going to start changing. And a lot of Democrats use mail-in ballots, but the Republicans use that to say, oh, look, we were winning and now we're not. So it's all part of the design. It really is. So I know a lot of people are going to be watching Pennsylvania and scratching their heads and saying, why is it taking so long? Well, it's by design.
Doctor, you got a very busy medical practice, but you're putting in work. You're knocking on doors. It's incredible what you're doing. A lot of people are watching, though, and they want to know what they can do. Can they get involved? Are there organizations that you're seeing in Pennsylvania that you want to highlight? Or what's your general advice and guidance to people? Because, again, you run an incredibly busy medical practice, right? You're like the lead there, right? Don't you basically, you basically run it, and you're still being able to do this, and you're public about your support as well. So, what's your advice, and where can people go as well if they just want to help organizations?
Sure. I definitely want to give a shout out to my wife. I could not be this politically active without her support. We have children. We're trying to raise a family as well. She happens to be a committee person, so she's very involved in the local Democratic committee. And I would say, if you have access to a local Democratic committee, that's a great way to get involved. A lot of these committees are helping with canvassing and phone banking and sending out postcards. If you don't have access to that, you can go to go.kamalaharris.com. They have ways you can look up based on your zip code, the closest place where you can canvass, the closest place where you can sign up for phone banking or postcard writing. I also like to use mobilize.us. That's a great resource as well. It's pretty easy to get connected these days, and I would just say keep trying. There are so many volunteers. There are people, there's an 18-year-old who is here from California working for our local Democratic committee. He's staying in a host house through the election. I mean, it's a grassroots effort. All the people that are getting involved, not just in Pennsylvania, but from surrounding states. So yeah, I implore anyone to try and do something. I know that not everybody can do something. I know some people have mobility issues, or they're working 2 jobs, or they don't have a car. But if you can make a $5 donation to either Kamala Harris or a down ballot candidate, if you can do one phone bank, that makes a difference. And if you can't do any of those things, just know that there are people like me that are putting in the work, and thousands of other people are doing it too.
Very serious people putting in very serious work. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention at the end, there's the Keystone 9 state level races that are being focused on as well, that are flippable state seats. There's an auditor general, an attorney general race there. We've had Senator Bob Casey on here, who's running against a MAGA carpetbagger in McCormick, and we've talked with Senator Bob Casey. So there's a lot also, not just at the top of the ticket. So I just wanted to mention that at the end as well. Dr. Zeke Tyler, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Hit subscribe. Let's get to 4 million subscribers together.
Real quick, Meta just changed their algorithm to suppress political content. Please follow our Instagram @MeidasTouch right now as we head towards 400,000 followers so you don't miss a beat.